Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 55, which is called Legacy, and this was another really strong chapter. Obviously, just from the cover page alone, Code, they're bringing him into the spotlight. Here's what Code is about, and through this chapter you basically get his backstory. We get the reveal that effectively he is going to be the next sort of big villain in the series because Ishiki, they confirm, is gone. Momoshiki has been dealt with for the time being, but is going to be a long-term threat if that extraction completes in Boruto. But Code has been tasked. The last time that Ishiki is on screen here, he gives his last speech to Code. Basically, fulfill the mission and you will become an Otsutsuki yourself. And this fits Code's personality that we've recently learned about from the anime, of him being very reverent towards Jigen Ishiki, and giving you that sense that, like, oh, you know, Jigen favors him, and it's this almost like tragic thing that why isn't he the vessel? He would be the perfect vessel, but it didn't work out. He is now the failed vessel, but here he is getting his opportunity to be the central figure to fulfill his god's wish, basically. And that's a really cool motivation for a villain. And the other interesting factor in that is that this obviously doesn't really get us to the first chapter of Boruto and Kawaki fighting in the future, where they both have karma marks. So how does suddenly Code having a white karma mark that is different than the other karma marks, how does that fit into things? Is he just going to be a bit of a sort of transition villain before we get into whatever plot details happen to set up the Boruto Kawaki dynamic? But I think what it confirms to us, at the very least, is that chapter 1 stuff probably doesn't happen until much further into the series than I think we all expected. I still think a time skip is probably going to happen somewhat quickly, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Code did attack straight away, because it seems like he wants to get revenge right now, and that he perhaps isn't going to plan out stuff all that much. Logically, I think it would make sense to attack now while everyone is injured and there's no chance to recover or regain their strength or powers back. It would be the most ideal opportunity for him to get his revenge. But he might also need to learn what his own skill set is with the powers. But I think the fact that he was a high up Kara member before now, it speaks to the fact that he knows what he can do with the Karma Mark powers. But either way, lots of interesting stuff on that side of things, and just the general story direction of Boruto, and how it's not entirely clear what exact path we're going to take. But this chapter also had a really notable emotional moment with the sort of the death of Kurama, separating these two characters that have been literally linked since the start of Naruto as a series. Now they are, you know, separated, and we don't know if Kurama is going to be revived at some point like the other tail beasts are. We don't know if this is a specific situation or if this is just a, you know, this is how Kurama has died and we'll maybe see him again after the time skip or whatever. And still, it's an interesting dynamic of, like, just even just thinking about that of, okay, if Kurama returns, I guess it will be as a chakra kind of beast, just big out somewhere in the world. He's not going to be reborn within someone. That has to be a thing that happens later. It asked the question of, you know, might someone else become a Jinchuriki? But there's no real need for that anymore because of what Naruto has done for the tail beasts. So I don't know, might the tail beasts play a role at some point? I don't know, it would be pretty nice. But we'll have to see on that. Similarly, that scene asked the question about Naruto. What is Naruto's power level at this point? I thought, based on the last chapter, that what they were going to do was basically be like, Naruto can't be a shinobi anymore. All of his power is probably going to be gone because of Baryon mode, and that's what we're going to do. But this seems to commit to more of just the effect that this has had is it's just brought Naruto maybe down more in line with a lot of the other characters. He's not at the crazy high level that he once was, but he's still going to be pretty good. But as Kurama says, if he pushes things too much, he's at risk of dying in situations where some of the other characters would be at risk of dying. Same applies to Sasuke. Without the Rinnegan, he all of a sudden is down a huge arsenal of jutsu. So we'll see how they go with that and how they do it. But I think this will be beneficial for the series going forward. It'll allow the younger characters and a potential time skip to grow quite heavily and potentially get to the level or surpass some of these other characters. And I think that's been something that's been needed, definitely. So that was good. It also, towards the end of the chapter commits to, Boruto, Kawaki, this friendship between the two of them. They argue a lot, but they do care about each other, is a really, really important dynamic within the series. And I actually like that they're just taking their time with it. They're not rushing to get to Kawaki is suddenly a villain again, or however that happens, whatever way we're meant to interpret Boruto chapter 1, the first few pages. They're taking their time and in fact are committing to Kawaki really wants to help Boruto, wants to help Boruto get rid of the karma mark, that is his goal. So how does that end up happening? How does it end up that Kawaki, in his quest to get rid of Boruto's karma and clarifying he hates karmas, how does he get his own one back again? Very, very interesting stuff. So let's get into this chapter sort of page by page here, and we'll discuss some of the specifics. So, of course, we open up with Naruto in his sort of inner world talking to Kurama, the kind of mind space here where they can talk. So really nice just dynamic here of just, heart to heart here between these two characters. And it's really meaningful because, like I said before, they've been together since the start. This Naruto being a Jinchuriki is what created the character of Naruto. His dealing with his loneliness, how he, through the few strong connections that he managed to form, created this drive for himself to become the Hokage, and what he accomplished bringing everyone together. And one of the most notable steps along the way was the fact that he was able to properly and truly become friends with Kurama and the other tailed beasts. So this relationship has a lot of meaning and impact behind it. So Kurama, in this moment, what we learn from this, sacrificed himself to save Naruto. He, created this lie about Baryon mode and misled Naruto when he knew going into it that this mode would only have a negative impact on Kurama himself. So very, very interesting stuff. And he says, I came to say farewell. So far as that goes, this may be the last conversation, so start talking. And Naruto, really on the spot, doesn't know what to say, and he's just like, well, you killed my mom, Pa. No, that's not it. We've been through a lot. All in all, I'm really glad you were around. Thanks. And Kurama's just like, that's it? Really? We're saying goodbye to each other here, and you're just going to get all sort of mopey with me about this? Naruto just said, I thought I was prepared for this, but now that the time's come, I've no idea what to say. So Kurama just notes that, the Baryon mode worked. We were able to take down the Otsutsuki. I didn't want to chase my tail and die in vain, so this ain't a bad way to go. And he just notes that Naruto, a lot of the issues left, they're going to be on you to do on your own. So then he goes on to explain, okay, you're going to be down a tail beast, meaning you'll basically have undergone a Jinchuriki extraction. Here's why it won't kill you. Normally when a Jinchuriki's Biju is extracted, they die. That doesn't apply to you. I'm guessing the explanation behind that is just because he's an Uzumaki, and we had the example of Kushina also surviving the extraction. So I think that's kind of simple. Uzumaki is the way to kind of go with that. That makes sense. The Biju's chakra simply vanishes. It probably looks to others like you're dead, but it's no more than a temporary state of shock. Don't worry, you'll wake up soon. So this helps to explain to us why they were so serious with the portrayal of Naruto in the last episode. Why he was on the ground, his body felt like lead, and was just not moving. It's just that this is that state of shock. This is his reaction to basically undergoing a tail beast extraction. So that all fits, works, makes sense. So yeah, the Baryon mode's price is my life, not yours, Naruto. Just so you know, I never once lied to you. At no time did I ever say that you would die. You deliberately misled me. Yes. And he goes on to just basically explain, if I told you everything about how the technique worked, you would have argued about it, you wouldn't have gone ahead with it, so this is what needed to happen. So, Kurama being sort of selfless here, and he's like, don't look at me like that, that's what's annoying about you. Well, I guess this is it. I've got to go, but be real careful. You ain't going to have superhuman strength anymore, so if you overdo it, you'll end up joining me in no time. Now, the big question is probably going to be a little bit of a debate about what exactly does that mean. Is that basically saying that Naruto, you are just going to be relatively normal after this, you'll survive, no problem, but you basically won't have many ninja skills anymore? Or is he just sort of saying that you are not going to be as borderline indestructible as you've been up to this point? I think that's what they're saying here, that the main benefit that Naruto's always had being a Jinchuriki, especially the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, is that if he ever got injured, just the chakra of the Nine Tails would always give him that healing factor. That is now gone. A general sense of toughness to his body, the fact that he could always take a beating, that probably is gone. And he's a little bit more like some of the other high-level shinobi who are maybe a little bit more of a glass cannon type character. So it probably puts him more in line with Sasuke, where he can still take a little bit of punishment, but nowhere near like what he could before, where he can just get like impaled and stabbed all over the place and just heal off that damage. The question is going to be like, I'm guessing he can still use Sage Mode. I don't know where they're going to take their stand on the whole Six Paths modes type stuff. But I think that's what they're going for here, is just that the lack of Kurama being there does take away this like core inherent ability that he's always had, that's added a level of toughness to him. But the fact that he says, so if you overdo it, you'll end up joining me in no time, to me suggests that Kurama's opinion is that Naruto's still going to be involved in fights, but Naruto just has to be much more careful. Can't be doing what he's done recently in some of the fights anymore. So I think that just puts him in line with everyone else, which makes sense. Same with Sasuke and the Rinnegan. But until that day comes, you be well, Naruto. And Naruto reaches out for him, but Kurama vanishes. Don't go, wait, Kurama. He reaches out, but his hand is grabbed by Boruto as he wakes up. So, yeah, Naruto is not a Jinchuriki anymore. Again, I don't know how they're going to necessarily explain the whole idea that Naruto actually has like a fragment of like the other tail beasts inside him as well. But either way, he's lost his tail beast, the Nine Tails. And it's an emotional scene. Like I'm so excited for when the anime eventually gets to this, to just see how they visually, in color, show some of this stuff, like the oranges, the kind of the energy of Kurama, I suppose, vanishing into smoke. The emotion from the voice acting here, I think, is going to be very strong, and it works well here in the manga as well. But I think the anime, this is an opportunity to really hit a powerful scene home quite well. But we go from one emotion to another of just the happiness of Boruto seeing Naruto actually wake up. How could you worry me like that, stupid dad? Kawaki wakes up as well. And then off screen, the idea is that he explains to everyone what's just happened. And yeah, I assumed I'd be the one who'd die. Kurama's gone. And Kawaki just notes, can we talk about this later when we get home? So attention switches to Boruto. Can you get us home, Boruto? Because I can't use my Rinnegan anymore. So yeah, Boruto realizes, oh, you want me to use the Karma Mark, Space-Time Ninjutsu, to get us home. But then the reminder about the Rinnegan and that Boruto kind of was responsible for that comes up. But Sasuke says, don't worry about it. I'm just stating a fact. This is not your fault. We were all prepared to die. We need to count ourselves lucky to have won and survived. Boruto's about to get very guilty about this when Kawaki steps up and basically stops this right now. The man himself is telling you it's okay, so drop it. Just hurry up and do it, Boruto, since there ain't no other way. And so, yeah, we get past that. It feels like, Boruto's not going to feel like this insane level of guilt towards what happened with Sasuke. Sasuke's fine with it, and it now seems like Boruto is going to be willing to accept it. Then we get into the really interesting stuff. Why Code is the the cover page for the chapter, and we cut to interesting opening panel here on this page. We cut to the Otsutsuki ruins, and we see that one of them has like the black symbol in it, the others are white, and Code is asleep. So this is what he's doing. He thinks his task is pretty boring, to look after the 10 tails. He wakes up, sees it's okay, and is just like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna go back to sleep. But before he does that, he takes a look at his hand, and it's noted that he has a karma mark too, but it is a white karma mark. And he says, damn it, Kawaki, supplanting me and basically being chosen to become an official Otsutsuki vessel, why would you be upset over that? I wouldn't waste the opportunity if I'd had an actual real karma instead of this dud. So immediately confirming the karma he has is different because it's not a real one. But all of a sudden, like, smoke basically starts to come out of it. It sort of activates, and from the smoke comes the spirit, or I suppose soul is the word that they end up using here, of Ishiki. So this is a surprise. I thought Ishiki was gone, but the chapter goes on to really commit to that. Ishiki is gone, but because there's a, I suppose, partial karma in Code, there's some level of he can give a final communication to Code here. So, Code, my most loyal, beloved servant, Otsutsuki, Ishiki, what are you doing here? And here we go. How fate indulges irony, that with all my vessels gone and nowhere for my soul to dwell, its destination would be you, Code, who could not become a vessel. And he's like, wait, what? The resurrection failed? What happened? I was deceived and betrayed by Amado and was forced to resurrect in Jigen, and thus ended up like so. It caused Kawaki's karma to dissipate, but it appears your karma has remained. You who were not suitable to be a vessel. And Code is just like, but this karma is a dud. Unlike Kawaki, I couldn't become a vessel. I'm humbled that you're here before me, but I cannot serve as a receptacle for your soul. And Ishiki agrees with this and is like, okay, the non-vessel white karma, that is my legacy, dwelling within you in the form of pure power, and you shall inherit the Otsutsuki will in addition to that white karma, Code. My soul will dissipate shortly, but I cannot allow the Otsutsuki will to be snuffed out as well. Not when we have devoured countless planets and continuously evolved over thousands of years. So he goes on to explain sort of what he wants Code to do in a second, but let's just talk about this for a second. So Code gets the realization that, okay, Ishiki is about to die. He's about to dissipate. So this is confirming none of him, his consciousness, is going to be left in this karma. What is left is just that basically, I suppose, Code has, I suppose, at least part of the power of an Otsutsuki through the white karma mark, but the resurrection aspect of the karma isn't in place at this point. But because of that, because he's his most loyal servant, and I suppose the vessel that would have been if it had worked and they had not required Kawaki, he's passing on his will as an Otsutsuki to Code. So that's really, really interesting. The only, I suppose, question I have here is that it's almost he almost talks as if he's like the last Otsutsuki, when it's, I think, abundantly clear that there's still a whole clan out there. There's like a leader, there's like a noble section of the clan that like we got reference to before, the main branch of the clan. So it kind of feels weird that, like, okay, just one of them dying, that his, like, the will of Otsutsuki is gone when, Momoshiki's still over here. Does his will not mean as much as yours? I suppose the thing here is that I maybe would have preferred if, like, Ishiki was a little bit more about, like, my will as an Otsutsuki rather than the Otsutsuki will. But again, this is probably where maybe there is some understanding about the Otsutsuki that we don't fully know, but we get more explanation here. So, sure, go on. What would you have me do? So he explains, Kawaki or Uzumaki Boruto, consecrate either of them to the 10 tails and cultivate a divine tree. So again, they are the only two characters who are eligible in this case because they both have sort of, they have both very recently either had or still have a karma mark, so they are treated as an Otsutsuki and can feed the divine tree, which requires a sacrifice to the Ten Tails to make happen. So Code does react a bit to the name Uzumaki Boruto, but then she continues. Then procure the chakra fruit that the divine tree bears. It is the crystallization of a planet's life. It shall contain everything, a record of all life that ever lived and died on this planet, including me. Eat it and upgrade yourself, Code. Do that, and you yourself will become a new Otsutsuki. That's really interesting to me. Just this concept that Code, who is, I'm guessing, just a modified human, can eat a chakra fruit and become an Otsutsuki. Now, the interesting factor in that is that he has this white karma mark that at least gives him sort of like Otsutsuki energy or chakra to play some sort of a role as like a catalyst for the transformation. But it also potentially speaks to the origins of the Otsutsukis. What, as at the core, at the beginning of their process of evolution, were they? In that, the questions that I still have are, where did they get the Ten Tails from? Because the Ten Tails are basically just seeds for divine trees. So seeds that, when active, absorb everything on a planet into a powerful fruit that gives more and more power. And that's their progress, of just they basically consume everything from a planet, use it to evolve and upgrade. But what were they in the first place? Which potentially speaks to the fact that, like, what an Otsutsuki isn't this weird, like, white-skinned, humanoid beings who have these powers. That's just where they are now after all of this evolution. That just, the fruit has something within it that just makes them, you are an Otsutsuki now, you will continue on this path to want to achieve more and more power and so on. Because as we go on, he says, then, once you're an Otsutsuki, go forth and devour planet after planet across space. Keep evolving until you become a peerless, unique existence, a god. And Code clearly is all aboard with this idea. And yeah, there is the visualization of a god there. Really interesting design. Look at all those eyes in the sort of like sphere or like cylinder around the god. And then just the very interesting design with all the lines. There's clearly some sort of like dojutsu, like eye power, as well as like a power in the forehead. And then the head being... I'm not sure if we're meant to interpret that as being like there's some sort of a like sphere in the head, or if that's just like a hole in the to present like the area that the background is revolving around. But either way, crazy situation here of just that is, I suppose, the ultimate goal of all Otsutsukis, is to devour planets, become more and more powerful until eventually you are powerful enough that you are a god. And what does that mean? That, like, the Otsutsukis already come across as like the most powerful beings we've ever had. But the fact that it is theoretically possible for them to, I suppose, get to a point where they can do godlike acts, that's insane to sort of consider. But Code says, a god. But as a worshipper of the Otsutsuki, you were my god. So first I want to dispose of those who stole the pillar of my heart from me, before I have the divine tree absorb all life. Tell me the names of the people who destroyed you. So Code wants revenge for the people who killed the person he looks up to so much. And again, that fits his anime personality. He's very sort of jealous if anyone else he feels is having the favor of Jigen. And so of course it would make sense that he'd do all this stuff to try and sort of, please his god here. And if that includes fulfilling his god's dream of becoming a god, that's the thing he's going to do, as he activates the power of the karma mark, and is seemingly about to go straight away, set out and take out everyone who he's being told about. So we move on from there, and we have Boruto trying to use the karma mark power. Kawaki gives him some advice, but then ultimately commits to the goal of, my karma's gone for good, but I'll somehow get rid of your karma. I swear it. So this seems like a really important character kind of decision here. Kawaki setting this goal for himself that he's going to commit to that for sure. And yeah, he goes on about like how I absolutely hate karma from the bottom of my heart, and I won't rest until I stamp them all out, no matter who has it. So that's an interesting goal, considering what we know is going to happen eventually in the future. So they begin to sort of fight and argue a little bit here, and what ends up happening is that them sort of being angry at each other sort of connects their energies together, and the space-time ninjutsu activates, because it clearly shows both of them sort of like the power activating among both of them. I'm guessing it still works with Kawaki because he is, considered an Otsutsuki, because of how far the extraction was, because he's like the perfect vessel. That's why it all works. So Sasuke grabs Naruto and they all go through this space-time portal. So they're back in the village, and we cut back to Amado, Sumire, Katasuke, and Shikamaru, who are obviously all the ones who were initially observing what was going on, but then lost sight of what was going on. The main focus here is that Amado seems to sort of be freaking out. Before he knows that they're back, he's kind of like, what's going on? What's going on? He really is like running scared almost that he's lost track of the situation, that they've maybe lost their big chance. They seem to really linger on the fact that Sumire especially is really just like, what's going on with Amado? But Shikamaru eventually hears that everyone is back, and they're all safe. And Amado specifically inquires, what about Kawaki? Is he okay? And he just gets told that, yeah, he's fine. Might be injured a bit, but he's fine. And Amado's like, a sense of relief. I see, he's safe. Thank goodness. And again, a second panel of Sumire just looking at Amado going like, what's that about? Like, as if, I understand you know Kawaki and are concerned for him, but this feels like it's a little bit more than I got the sense from for you otherwise. So what's going on here? Does Amado have something planned? And this speaks to the fact that, like, I suppose there's a bit of Amado like backstory that we probably still need to get to bring everything together. There's, I suppose, more just general backstory on just the exact origins of like Kara, how everyone was recruited, like where exactly Kawaki came from, that probably still need to come together, and he might know some of that stuff. But anyway, everyone's back, finally home, back to the village, barely, but somehow. And yeah, Boruto says to Kawaki, I do feel like anything's possible as long as I'm with you. And he's like, you gotta be joking. Hurry up and stand up on your own. And Boruto just smiles at him. So just their individual characters coming out quite well. But a clear sense that the two of them are seemingly going to go from strength to strength after this experience they've just been through. Kawaki is committing to help Boruto get rid of his karma, now that he's free from the karma. So Kawaki is in a very interesting spot as of the end of this arc, and it's going to be fascinating to see where they go. But yeah, we have Boruto, then we cut to a small panel of, again, the Otsutsuki kind of panel on the wall, which, again, I'm not really sure what we're necessarily meant to take away from the kind of like the black and white, but we transition over to Code, and he says, Kawaki, Amado, Sasuke, Naruto, and Momoshiki's vessel, Uzumaki Boruto. So they're obviously the names he's been told. This group of people are the ones who ultimately work together to take out Ishiki. So these are the people that Code is going to go after for revenge against his god. And yeah, that's where the chapter ends. And I think the major question is obviously, next chapter coming March 19th, are we setting up for the time skip within the next 2-3 chapters? Or is Code going to try and get his revenge like immediately? And that's the thing. How much setup work does Code actually need? Code knows about the Ten Tails. He's been guarding it. So all he has to do is literally grab Kawaki or Boruto, or both, feed them to the Ten Tails. That will activate the Divine Tree, and the Chakra Fruit will eventually grow. I suppose the question is, he has to probably find some way to deal with, potentially the entire Shinobi world teaming up against him when this is about to happen again. How does he stop that? He needs forces behind him, and right now it doesn't seem like he has anything. So he probably ultimately does need time to build this up. So the time skip perhaps is likely to happen at this point, because a lot of the characters need to grow and develop. There needs to be time put into investigating the karma and how to potentially stop it. But it also puts into place, we need to deal with Code before we can get anywhere near Kawaki getting a karma mark, and Boruto versus Kawaki being the big thing, and Naruto being sent somewhere. Like, we were worried Naruto was potentially going to die recently, and now he seems fine, but he's lost Kurama. What next? Like, what's going to happen to Naruto where he's sent somewhere apparently? But like I said, I think that probably is an arc a bit further down the line than we thought it was, and Code, we need to deal with Code first. So yeah, my guess is that ultimately Code is going to have to lose, because is there a way that they can't, surely they can't do this again, where like the chakra tree activates and everyone gets absorbed again to make the chakra fruit happen. And it's not like an instantaneous thing either, because they're talking about how, it absorbs like all the life and experience of the entire planet and stuff like that. There's going to be a massive attempt to stop that, of course. It shall contain everything. It's a crystallization of a planet's life. So I don't know. We'll see exactly what way they go about that. But obviously, with Kawaki and Boruto both surviving until their scene actually happens, how like Code has to fail, I guess, unless there's some other situation that they bring up about how they can actually make that happen. But I don't know what to make of that. Because again, if Code is basically sort of religious to some degree about the Otsutsuki, if Code ever encounters Momoshiki himself, that could be an interesting thing, because that's another member of the same species. It all depends on what exact approach Code is going to take here. Is he super loyal specifically to Ishiki, or is it just to Otsutsuki? Because how important is Ishiki? Like, there's higher ups in the Otsutsuki society. There's a lot of reveals that are going to have to come out here, definitely. So I don't actually know how that's going to take place necessarily. Is it just going to be Code basically doing what Jigen / Ishiki did over this arc of just literally come to attack? Or will there be more planning behind this? Because I'm always at the point now where I think what they need to do is take a break for a bit of a time skip, allow Boruto to train, Kawaki to train, Sarada to train, Mitsuki to train, everyone get a chance to train. Establish where is Naruto at this point without the tailed beast. What's going on there? And so on. Come back after like a year or two and establish what's going on. But if we're going into a time skip, you probably also have to set up what's going on with Kashin Koji. Is he going to step back in and help to train Boruto potentially, or someone else? How is Sarada going to advance her Sharingan, given that they're kind of taking a little bit of a different approach in terms of the usual way an Uchiha gains power? There's interesting stuff going on here, and I just find it hard to predict exactly what way they're going. So, that's definitely a sign of the manga just in general being in a very strong point. And again, another chapter on the 19th, so we don't have to wait all the way to the 20th, so that shouldn't be too long. Especially because this month obviously is a shorter one as well, so that chapter is going to come up upon us a bit quicker than we expect, which is really good to see, because I think there's going to be a good amount of hype for the next chapter as well. Again, I assume it's going to be kind of like this one, where it'll be part epilogue, but the time skip's going to have to happen somewhere, because I believe this chapter should be the ending of a volume, because it's 4 chapters per volume, and I think this works out as being the 4th in this series of 4 chapters. So whatever we jump into next should be sort of like the start of something new, which I guess would be whatever the next arc is. But they're my thoughts on the chapter. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were. How did you feel about this really, really interesting chapter? The main thing I really want to know is, where do you think the story direction is going next? Are we getting time skip within the next few chapters, or is Code going to attack during this like present day thing? then we time skip. What are your thoughts on that? But yeah, let me know them in the comments below. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.